There are a lot of different things that take on behind the scenes before a song or an entire new album by one of our favorite musicians has the opportunity to be heard by us. Due to the fact that they were not included on the final CD, there are a great number of songs that we will never again hear. Moreover, there are instances in which a single song will be handed around by a number of different performers until it is finally found a home. Blake Shelton, a country music superstar, disclosed in a recent episode of the Bobby Bones show that he had initially recorded "I Wanna Talk About Me," a mega-hit song by Toby Keith. However, he ultimately decided to abandon the song after a focus group convinced him that it would be a complete and utter failure. Bobby Braddock, who was Shelton's producer at the time, knew that he wanted to break out into more fun-sounding songs, so he wrote "I Wanna Talk About Me," and Shelton recorded it. Shelton revealed this in the interview, which was aired on TikTok by the radio station. On the other hand, his record company conducted a focus group for the new song, and the results did not meet the expectations that he and his team had for the response. The situation was so terrible that they stated, "Not only do we not want this to be a single, but we don't even think you should put it on your album. That song is terrifying," he stated. "It's that terrible." Laughing, Shelton continued, "And then of course Toby recorded it, and I believe he had a 2-month record on it that was #1. The fact that Shelton has had a number of hits of his own since then suggests that perhaps everything turned out for the best in the end. It is difficult to envision Shelton being the voice behind such a legendary song that Keith has created. The Shelton Blake celebrated the life and legacy of the late Toby Keith during the American Country Music Awards in 2024. In addition to being fellow country performers, Shelton and Keith were also close friends with one another. It was clear that this was the case when Shelton paid tribute to him at the American Country Awards in 2024, which took place after his passing in February of that same year. In his heartfelt address, Shelton expressed his sentiments by stating, "In the end, the mark that Toby left was much more than just that. Toby was a loving husband to his beautiful wife Trisha Lucas. We are extremely honored and moved to have Trisha and all of their children here with us tonight. He was a proud father to their 3 children, and we are deeply impacted by their presence. Toby was a great friend to me, and he was a real straight shooter who was larger than life. He always would shoot you straight, right up until the very end of his very brave ride, which ended way too soon," he added. "He was a very courageous rider." Blake Shelton just dropped a bombshell that has the country music world buzzing louder than a cicada in July. This bombshell was dropped in the heart of Nashville, where neon lights flicker like fireflies and every bar stool contains a story. I am referring to the city of Nashville. The Oklahoma-born musician, who is known for his chart-topping tunes and quick wit, admitted during an intimate interview on the Bobby Bones show that he had passed up a song that left him horrified at first listen. This song went on to become the #1 smash for none other than Garth Brooks. The discovery, which is presented with Shelton's characteristic blend of humor and humility, reveals the unpredictability of the alchemy of music making, which is characterized by gut feelings, mistakes, and second chances that shape legacies. Is this the song in question? Not to be confused with Brooks' mega hit The Dance, which was released in 1990 and has been a timeless ballad that has been breaking hearts and filling dance floors for decades. The song, which was written by Tony Arata, has become an essential component of country music due to its eerie melody and heartfelt lyrics, which are about the fleeting moments of life and the love that lives on forever. However, in the late 1980s, when Shelton was a young guy with wide-eyed dreams of becoming a famous musician in Nashville, the demo was delivered to him, or more accurately, to the hands of his early manager. Shelton recalled, with a drawl as thick as molasses, that he was roughly 17 years old and was just beginning to make his living in Oklahoma bars. Following the delivery of this tape to my manager, I thought to myself, "Man, this is way too heavy. A funeral in 3 chords is what it sounds like." He was instructed to send it back to me. Rather than being the result of arrogance, Shelton's rejection was the result of adolescent innocence. At the time, he was looking for songs that were radio-friendly, energetic, and complemented the high-energy performances he was giving. Songs like Austin or All Red which swaggered with charm and grit, were what he was looking for. It was like a hit to the gut that he wasn't prepared to handle when he heard the dance because of its philosophical lyrics about embracing the agony of life for its beauty. Shelton said with a chuckle, "I'd remember thinking that it was horrifying the entire time. It's not horrible, but it's just unreal. When I was a child, I was attempting to sing about trucks and beer, not some profound meditation on the loss of a loved one. That is not clear to me." The demo was passed along, and it ultimately made its way to Garth Brooks, who was just beginning his career at the time. His manager, who appreciated the significance of the song, did not oppose the idea. It was in the dance that Brooks, who was already making waves with his debut album, was able to hear something that Shelton was unable to. Shelton congratulated his fellow Oklahoman by saying, "Garth has this gift for seeing the soul in a song." Shelton was the one who made the statement. He took that demo, which I thought sounded like a rough sketch, and turned it into a masterpiece, I said. The dance, which was released in 1990, quickly rose to the top of the Billboard Hot Country Songs list, which resulted in Brooks being awarded a Country Music Association award and securing a place in the hearts of his fans for all time. It was elevated to the status of an anthem of perseverance by its music video, which featured homage to heroes such as Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy. This elevated it to a level that resonated well beyond Nashville. Shelton's open revelation prompted a rush of responses on social media, with fans and other musicians chiming in on their interpretations of the situation. Miranda Lambert, who was once married to Blake Shelton and is a friend of his, tweeted, "Blake's decision to leave the dance is the same as me declining the house that built me. There are instances when we all fail to recognize a treasure." Brooks himself called into the show at the same time, and he laughed off the anecdote with the remarkable grace that he is known for. According to Brooks, "Blake, you managed to avoid a bullet. It was written specifically for me, but I'm willing to bet that you would have summed the hell out of that song as well." In a field like country music, where missed opportunities are just a part of the journey, the conversation brought to light the strong sense of community that exists throughout the genre. Shelton provided a lesson in humility as he reflected on the decision he had made. One of the things that he stated was, "I've learned that you don't always know what's gold when it's staring you in the face. At the time, I was too young to comprehend that the finest songs are those that give you a little bit of a fright. Because of them, you experience something that you are not prepared for." During a time when Shelton, who is now 49 years old, is embracing a new chapter in his career, this truth has come to light. Following the release of his album Body Language in 2024 and his high-profile marriage to pop icon Gwen Stefani, he is now delving deeper into songwriting and producing, professions that need the kind of instinct that he lacked when he was a teenager. In addition, the narrative of the dance gives insight on the creative gamble that includes the choosing of songs. It is common for artists, producers, and publishers in Nashville to exchange demos with one another like wildfire. A single rejection can completely change the course of a song's destiny, as was the case when Brooks was the recipient of Arata's work. "Tony wrote something that applies to everyone," Shelton reflected. "Despite the fact that I was too preoccupied with pursuing my own sound to notice it, Garth was able to make it communicate with everyone." The dance was inspired by a late-night screening of Peggy Sue Got Married, where themes of life's what-if struck a chord, according to Arata, who is now a famous musician. However, Arata has remained silent regarding the Shelton narrative, while earlier sharing that the dance was inspired by the film. The story of Shelton is not simply about a squandered opportunity. Rather, it offers a glimpse into the vulnerability of artistic expression. The authenticity of a song is essential to the success of country music, and it takes just as much bravery to decline a song that seems off as it does to accept it. Shelton said, "I've passed on other songs that became hits and made the admission. Some of them went to Kenny Chesney, while others went to Tim McGraw. The situation is analogous to allowing a fish to escape from your net. You hope that it swims to someone who will successfully pull it in. In a business where performers infrequently acknowledge to making mistakes out of concern that doing so will diminish their star, his honesty is a powerful force." What is the irony? It is possible that Shelton's own discography has a number of tracks that may have been considered the dance by another artist. The song God Gave Me You, which was penned by Dave Barnes and released by Shelton in 2011, was almost originally recorded by another artist before Shelton seized it and turned it into a standard on wedding playlists. It was then that he replied, "That is the magic of this town. When you hear a song that doesn't resonate with your soul, you move on to another. What matters most is the timing." It is speculated by fans that Shelton would return to the dance in his own unique manner, possibly by performing a cover version of the song for a future album or by doing a duet with Stefani, whose emotionally charged vocals could bring a new dimension to the classic. As the conversation came to a close, Shelton leaned into the microphone, and his tone became more kind. "There is no regret on my part for declining the dance. At that time, I was not the one to relate the narrative. I learned to pay greater attention to what I was hearing and to not avoid music that made me feel uncomfortable. That is the place where the real matter resides." Because of the confession, there has been a resurgence in interest in the dance, as evidenced by the fact that the number of streams on Spotify has increased by 20% since the interview. This serves as a reminder to Shelton that being creative is not simply about making the most of every chance. Rather, it is about knowing when to let go and having faith that the appropriate song will find its place in the world. The conclusion of this tale is not one of regret, but rather of redemption, as is typical of the Nashville style. Shelton's admirers have become even more devoted to him as a result of his transparency, since many consider his honesty to be a sign of his genuineness. While he is getting ready to embark on a tour with Stefani in 2026, which will combine pop and country music in a show that will cross genres, he is demonstrating that he still has a lot of hits that he wants to pursue. And somewhere, Garth Brooks is beaming, knowing that the dance has found its exact voice, even if it had to take a detour through the ears of a teenage Blake Shelton, who was horrified by the song.